My name is Kate Harmon, and I'm the Director of Cross-Campus Engagement for the Lundquist Center for Entrepreneurship. And today on our Getting Ahead series, I'm thrilled to have with us Jennifer Nichols. Jennifer is the founder and proprietor of Bespoke Bride, a high-end, fashion-forward bridal boutique located in Bend, Oregon. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I thought we would start off with having you share a little bit about your background. You are a 2017 graduate of the Lundquist College of Business. Give us a little bit of background in terms of what sort of activities were you engaged in college, and what did you end up majoring in?
I was involved with mostly my classwork, honestly. It's kind of one of my biggest things from college that I regret a little bit. I was taking 20 to 24 credits a term pretty much the whole time while working full-time off campus. And so I was a member of both the Western and English equestrian show teams there for the school. And I own my own horses. So between class work, the show teams, and then my time at my own barn, that was pretty much it.
You were very busy. I know that. And so let's talk about, because you were so busy, you were focusing a lot of your time on really building your business while you were in college. And I'm just kind of curious if you can share with us what made you want to open your own bridal boutique even while you were in college, and what experience had you had in the bridal industry at that time?
Yeah. So when I moved back from Florida to Oregon to go to U of O, I realized that if I started out of state, I was stuck out of state. And I really didn't want to do that. I've been really focused on not taking on debt and those kind of things. So I took a little bit of a non-traditional route, and I realized that I needed to spend a year taking 8 or less credits and volunteering and working during that time so that I could meet with the admissions board later and show, hey, I'm an Oregonian, this is what I'm doing. So at the time when I came to U of O, I was actually a psychology major and planning to be a counselor. And I got a job kind of honestly as a fluke in bridal. I've met many women, especially now being in the industry, that are like, I've always dreamt of opening a shop or being a wedding planner. And that honestly was not the case at all for me. That was probably the last thing I actually wanted to do. But I got that job just to kind of support myself while I was taking lower credits and establishing my residency. And during that time, I fell in love with it. I loved what I was doing, and I realized I was really good at it. My psychology background really helped with sales. And my whole family, all the women on my side of the my mom's side of the family, are all entrepreneurs, own their own businesses. So I think it's just kind of bred in there a little bit. And so I instantly started to look at the fact that bridal had awesome margins. Dress sales have awesome margins. And it was this area that the industry hadn't really changed. It had been pretty traditional, and this new generation of brides was really looking for something different. I knew what it was, and I knew how to do it. And so at that point, I decided to switch my major to business, applied to the Lundquist College of Business, and was accepted. And so it was really cool because at that point, I already knew that I wanted to be developing my own bridal business. And here I was starting in the entrepreneurship concentration, where you start out as, how you would build a business. So all of my schoolwork directly applied to my business.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that were foundational for you that you went ahead and set up before you graduated. Because I think that was when having you in class and being able to oversee sort of your whole experience, I know I was really, proud in how you were disciplined to sort of really consciously build out what you needed to, so that you could launch your business right when you graduated. So could you talk a little bit about some of the key things that you think helped you that were foundational to launching your business?
Yes. So, most of the business courses, I feel like a lot of the projects are developing a business plan in some form. So that was one of the biggest things and kind of starting points. Um, well, even kind of backing up a bit, actually, the first class that we take in the business school, the leadership class, that really helped frame who I wanted to be as a business owner and what I wanted the company to be and what our values were. And that was really the foundation. And then from there, I built out the business plan fully during classes, 4 classes. And once I had that, I took that business plan to the Small Business Administration and started working with them and started looking at funding opportunities. And it was actually another classmate, Spencer, who was part of one of my group projects in the classes that, was working on these things with me. He said, you should really look into the seed grant, the RAIN U of O partnered seed grant here. And so I did that. We applied for that and we received that grant. So I got funding there. And then I knew I would need more money because we're doing a 3,500 square foot retail space in a very expensive town. And so we were working with the SBA, and I was working with teachers and classmates on completing my application for a Small Business Administration loan. And that was really cool because I learned that I think at the time at least was 5% of SBA loans granted were to women-owned businesses. So it was a very small percentage. And I was someone that didn't have history. Most of the women that were getting these loans from the SBA were people that had extensive years of experience, to show and financials to back them. And I just had my projections and my business plan. So it had to be really good. And so we got that. So we got $100,000 SBA loan and a $5,000 grant. And then I also at the time was obviously on campus in Eugene and was scouting locations over in Bend. So I was taking trips over to Bend to meet with a broker and see spaces. And once I found the space I wanted to be in, I realized that it wasn't just so easy as I want this one. The landlord of our building actually passed on our space or our use of space. As soon as he just back and forth with the broker and really be very persistent, and say, no, this is going to be, he's going to want me there and I want to pitch to him. Let me meet with him, and got that meeting, pitched to this big time developer, a landlord owner, and was able to secure my lease there. So then that was pretty much up until the time I was graduating. So at that point I had developed the idea, the concept, the marketing. I built out my website during that time and all of our social media and was ramping up, awareness that way. And so yeah, at the time of graduation, lease was signed and construction was starting on our build out.
That's great. I also remember very well that, so you graduated in June 2017. Right before you graduated, you got the $5,000 Rainmaker. And then I believe it was like on graduation day or the day after, you immediately went into the Rain Eugene Business Accelerator, which was a 16-week program to help spur entrepreneurs' business development. I wonder if you can share a little bit about what that particular experience added to your building your business.
Right. I think that when you build out your business plan by yourself, you've got an idea of how this is going to work. But as somebody that's, this is my first business, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't have the experience of being through obstacles that come up. And so going through the accelerator, it really kicked you into gear and made you focus on okay, what in this is going to work? What really isn't? And how do I strategize to make it work? So they really put you through the paces on everything. Just the team, the leadership team there, the cohort that you're with, it's really just like a highly diverse think tank that you get to have to really make your business better. So they really helped modify my business model so that as I was opening, I was really strong in the direction we were going, um, and prepared for obstacles that could and did come up. So yeah.
That's great to hear. Um, let's talk a little bit more about why you chose Bend to locate your business. I think a lot of times people don't understand the whole complexity of building out your own space. If you could kind of talk about why Bend, what was it like to build out your space? Because I know that it wasn't just always on time in terms of schedule. It just kind of, was there anything that you could have done differently, or was just if you look back at that experience?
Yeah. So starting out, when I was doing market research on where we were going to open, the first thought is, where are people? And obviously the I-5 corridor came to mind first. That's would be the most obvious choice. So Portland is going to be the most populated, but Portland is so saturated with competition there. And how bridal works is there's geographic territory rights for designers. So if I came into that market, I wouldn't be able to offer any of the lines that I wanted. And what was left that hadn't been taken, it just wasn't going to work. And I didn't want to compete with everyone there. And it's super expensive. And I also try to be really intentional with being honest with what kind of lifestyle I wanted as well. And I'm just not a big city person, which kind of poses an interesting dilemma, because for what I'm doing, I need a big city. Most bridal shops are in big cities. So then I started to, really dive in deeper to how do I make this work and still be where I need to be and position myself strongly. Going down, Salem doesn't have the money for the higher end lines that I wanted to do. Eugene, where I was at, same thing. The budget, which just wasn't quite there. And then Southern Oregon was an area that I really looked at for quite some time. There wasn't the competition there, and it's an area that there was a high demand for another shop. But ultimately, there are pockets of money, but it just wasn't ultimately, they were looking for something on a lower budget still. So then it gets kind of risky, I feel like, getting off of that main travel channel, and destinations in the state. Bend, Oregon is a huge destination, not just for Oregonians, but for people across the country, especially for weddings. There's a higher amount of income there, a lot of money spent there. And so I figured if somebody was going to take the time to drive off of the I-5, it'd probably be to Bend, and it matched the lifestyle that I wanted. And what I really liked about it is that I always try to find places that are growing, that are the up and coming places, so I can get in a little bit less expensively and then reap the benefits later. So Bend was an area that had 4 bridal shops, which was a lot for that amount of population, but they were all older. Nobody had come in with a modern shop. But the population had changed. It used to be an old logging town, a vacation rental town, and there's really been a huge move of younger people moving over there to live full time, and they wanted a different experience. So that's kind of how I chose that area, or Bend. And then my specific area in Bend, though, was also interesting. When I told people that were from that area that I was moving into Old Mill area, the box factory area, they're like, "What are you doing? That's nobody goes there. It's super industrial. It's a bad idea. But I had been there and I felt people were moving away from downtown where the rent was super high, anyways. And I really felt like this area was going to be the next hotspot. So to an extent, you just kind of have to trust your gut on that a little bit too. And it worked out. That area is now huge. And the lease rates are much higher than what I paid. So that worked out nicely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how long did it actually take you to build out to spec what you wanted for your space?
Yeah, a really long time. Construction started that June, and we were supposed to get keys in August, and we didn't open until mid-January. And that was a crazy time because bridal takes a while. Dresses take months to come in. So I had inventory stacked up in my bedroom, $100,000 of inventory just sitting there, not making me money. And bridal is seasonal and I was missing my season. So by the time they were going to have me ready to open, I kept explaining to them, like, you're going to put me right in my dead season. I'm going to be opening in this very, expensive overhead building. And so it was quite the challenge, there. But it put me in a good spot to negotiate. Sorry. It put me in a good spot to negotiate rent abatement and those kind of things. So I was always looking at, okay, how do I adapt to this challenge and make sure that I'm going to be okay moving forward?
You opened, so as you mentioned, you opened in mid-January 2018. I find so amazing, though not surprising given it's you, that you were named later that year in just June in the Oregon Bride magazine, Best of Brides edition, as having the best bridal boutique outside of Bend. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about. Oops.
Sorry.
That's okay. We can go over.
There we go.
Cool.
I fixed it.
Yeah. Well, so I'm curious, like, how did you ever in your mind think that you were going to be named Best Bridal Boutique outside of Portland so soon, within literally like 4 or 5 months of having opened?
It was definitely the goal. I'm definitely someone that puts really big goals out there, and I just think just go for it. So even opening the shop, that really came together in a year. Season wise, I'm like, okay, it's either going to happen within this year from start of idea to opening, or it's going to be 2 years. So let's just go for it. And it happened. Everybody thought that was crazy. And then with that award, having been in bridal at the other shop that I was, during school before, that's the coveted award. That is just like the stamp of approval. It's, it's a big deal. It's the biggest deal in bridal in the state. And I wanted it really bad. So it was the goal, but I genuinely didn't think that we would get it. It's in the history of the magazine, no store that had been in their first year of business has ever been awarded that award. But I think
you attribute it to your marketing success, your customer overall satisfaction, all of the above, or what do you feel like that you can kind of point to that says, that helped you in that area?
Yeah, I think, retail as an industry, everybody always says retail's dying, and modern shoppers really where how you're going to gain someone's business is the experience. Everyone's looking for the experience. It's not about the product. We can all buy the product online. So you absolutely just have to nail the experience. And so that was my main focus. A lot of people asked me, when I was developing this, like, why are you going for, this big space? Why are you going for a 3,500 square foot building, right off the start? And doing this expensive build out and, going so grand essentially. Start smaller and then build into it. And I knew, and it was actually a lot of it was a conversation with you during one of our classes, talking about space, and retail. And you shared with me, that choosing the right space, spending more on the right space to be in the right area, and deliver that experience there can sometimes be make or break versus saving money, going somewhere that's not quite the right spot, but you're saving big on overhead. And so that way, I took that really to heart and wanted to make sure that I opened and really delivered right from the get-go exactly what I wanted to present. And so I think that was the biggest thing. We are, I believe, probably the biggest shop in Oregon space-wise. And I really wanted to feel like we were in an LA or a New York or San Francisco level showroom. And then go even further and just really, I was focused on delivering kind of special touches. That was one of the big things from one of our entrepreneurial marketing classes that I took away, was, designing that experience. So things like making sure that from the entrance, there was a portal entry back into the dresses to build that excitement. And just everything was really intentionally chosen to deliver an experience that they couldn't get anywhere else in the state. And it worked out.
Absolutely. No, that's great to hear. So you've been in business now fully over 2 years. I'm curious, what do you think you are doing well? Like what you mentioned earlier, customer experience, but if you had to point a couple things, what makes you successful? And then on the other hand, what has been sort of the larger challenges of running a retail space over the last 2 years?
I know every owner of all the stores in Oregon, and I believe there's one other gal in Oregon that went to business school. So I have that foundation. And with that, I have a network. And so that's probably one of the biggest things that I think I've done well is, as you know, I will email when things come up, and I am not afraid to ask you guys for help. And so I've had this wealth of knowledge still that's helping me kind of navigate these issues that come up. And then, outside of, really, it's mostly customer experience, I feel like. But the other thing that I think I, as a founder, bring to the table is I've always been really good at running lean operations. So I'm not afraid to spend money where it needs to be spent, but then I make up for that in other areas. And I've been really, really good at keeping other operational expenses very, very low, which has been saving grace during, times like this. So I'm actually, kind of seated in a better position than a lot of other owners in the state right now, because of that. And what was the second part of the question?
Challenges. I would imagine the current COVID-19 environment right now has been probably one of your larger challenges in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Starting out, within 6 months of opening, we received a cease and desist letter regarding our name. We originally were Bliss Northwest, and there was a planner that had their lawyer send a big old document. So that was, right out the gate, right as we're really getting going. And I instantly emailed you and Shane Johnson and Joe Marushak and Derek from Cowbucker, and, reached out to my network and was like, hey guys, like, okay, how do I handle this? And so we had to navigate that. And then we changed our name. So we're just establishing kind of our hold on the market, and people know who we are. And then suddenly we're someone different and starting over. So that was a big challenge. And I think it worked out for the better. I think our name and brand now came out stronger from that. And then in March 2019, we had a big snowstorm in Bend, and my roof collapsed. So we were in the height of our, the peak of our selling season, and I was closed, completely unoperational, March and April and part of May.
Wow.
So that was another big challenge, and dealing with insurance and the landlord and negotiating that. And then of course this March, obviously, and it really, for bridal, it started back in January, because a lot of production happens, even if the dresses aren't from China, the material oftentimes is. And so things were delayed. And so it changed our ship times. I wasn't able to accommodate brides. So it really, from the start of the year, had a big effect. And then, now with everything weddings being canceled, and that's definitely a big hit to my shop and the industry as a whole, and really everyone. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very happy to hear that you're reopening later this week. So good luck with everything there. Um, I'm curious that, you are a female solo founder. Have you had any experience where you might say that has been a challenge to be a female? I mean, the bridal industry obviously is women dominated, but just from owning a business, operating it, do you happen to see any challenges in terms of being a woman-owned business?
Yeah. Yes, the industry itself is largely female operated businesses. But everyone that I dealt with, did business with to get to where we are, was male. So the SBA lender, the broker, the landlord, everyone was male. And so here I was 24, I think, at the time, and a female, and I wanted to open a bridal shop. And so these guys, nothing against them, but I think it's just this perception. And so I just basically got told I was cute and pat on the head everywhere I went. And I really had to fight harder at every step as a female to get them to take me seriously, and to listen. And like I mentioned before, the landlord passed on us, essentially, and I had to be very persistent. And I think that even just that, the perception of a woman being persistent and demanding, that audience, gets labeled differently than a male doing that. And so I got told that I was nagging at the time. And I said, you know what, I don't care. So, I eventually got that audience, and every time I was able to get that audience, and I really had to know my numbers frontwards and backwards. I had to be really confident, overconfident in everything I was doing, to show them, no, I know what I'm talking about. I know this is going to work, and this is going to bring value to you too. So yeah, really every step of the way there, I just had to fight harder to get people to listen. That's probably the main thing.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
On
No,
the
go ahead.
on the flip side of that, being a women-owned business also gets a lot of support too. So, now that we're open, we get a lot of support. We get interest from capital funds that want to fund women-owned businesses. So there's definitely that side of it too that has been a positive.
That's great. That's great. Good to hear. And I'm so proud of you for all that you've accomplished. Let's talk a little bit about bridal trends in your future. You were recently married yourself in the last year. I'm curious, as you sort of look at the forecast for the bridal industry, like what trends are you seeing, and sort of what do you see for the future of Bespoke Bride in terms of what else you might want to do for your business?
COVID has really upended this industry, as it has for many, but it's forced me to look at a possible pivot point, and so that primarily looks like virtual appointments. So that's kind of the big question right now is do we introduce virtual appointments with at-home try-on? So we virtually meet with the bride, and so we can still have that interaction, get to know her and what she's looking for, pick out, 5 dresses for her, ship them to the house, let her try on at home, and then they decide that way. I am all for technology and change and these things, but I really think that for this industry, it's kind of a Pandora's box, because you're going to essentially confirm in some ways that the shop isn't needed. And I don't want that to happen. So we're currently offering that service. But from a marketing perspective, I am doubling down on showcasing the shop and the experience there. Just overloading people with that so that they see it and want that, and really just choose to still shop in person versus at home. Because it just opens up, you're losing, it becomes again more about the product really, than the experience. So you're going to lose more sales. The industry average close rate is about 40 to 55%. In bridal, our close rate is typically an average of 65 to 80%. A lot of times we're at 100% close rate for the month, and it really is about that experience. So when you take that out, it's just very concerning. So trend wise, I think that's definitely a trend we're going to see, is these virtual appointments. But I think it's really key for Bespoke to offer that so that brides don't feel like they're missing out, but then still convince them that it's not the way they want to go. So that's my focus there. And then another thing for me too is having control over the product or exclusivity. So I'd really like to focus on developing our own in-house line, so we can control ship dates and those kind of things. So those are kind of the 2 trends that I'm really focused on right now.
That's exciting. Very, very exciting. And I agree. I feel like the bridal industry, the tradition of having friends and family be there to experience the whole, trying on dresses and stuff, is something that hopefully will always be everlasting, and will still want to be retained even after this current health crisis. I thought we would end by my kind of normal question to every guest on the series is, as you think back, and you don't have to think that far back to college days, but as you think back, for someone who wants to follow a similar career path as your own, whether that's in retail in general or getting into the bridal industry, what kind of advice or recommendations would you have for someone wanting to start their own business?
I think for students that are, in your classes right now, especially, is to really realize how much knowledge LCE has and is willing to share and wanting to share. I think when you're in college, it's easy to just kind of be like, I'm just trying to get through my classes, or not be as engaged with your professors and your classmates. But that is, once you're out in the real world, nobody really wants to, give you their time or their expertise, as even if it's, not a malicious thing, but just time and constraints. So you're never going to have as good of a network as you have through LCE and Lundquist in general. And that's something that I still leverage today, every day, so keep those relationships, check in, ask for help and guidance on anything. It always helps to get those opinions. And then know your market and really just think about how you can do it differently, to just provide a better experience so that people are going to want to choose you over everyone else doing what you're doing.
Jennifer Nichols is the founder and proprietor of Bespoke Bride. Jennifer, thank you for joining us for today and for sharing your story.
Of course. Thanks for having me.